For my daughter's birthday, my sister baked cookies and sent them over with a sweet little note that read, "Happy birthday. Eat as many as you like." 3 days later she called and asked, "Did she get to enjoy the cookies?" I laughed and said, "Your kid dropped by earlier and devoured every last one." Then came her loud voice over the phone. "Happy birthday." That crisp morning in Newton, a chic suburb of Boston, got off to a calm start as Margaret Wilson reviewed real estate contracts spread out on her kitchen island. The sunlight poured in through the expansive windows, highlighting her perfectly manicured fingertips, while her silk blouse and tailored pants gave off a magazine cover vibe. "Mom, I have to leave early for sports festival practice." 12-year-old Emma's voice rang out as she dashed down the stairs. With her long blonde hair pulled up neatly and even in her sporty outfit, she still carried an air of refinement. "Don't forget breakfast, sweetheart. Nutrition is key before a big event," Maggie reminded her with a warm smile, handing over a bowl of granola and yogurt. David had already dashed off to his early meeting, leaving Maggie and Emma to savor their peaceful morning. "Mom, the house you sold last week got amazing feedback," Emma chimed in. Maggie beamed with satisfaction. "Imagine pulling in $10,000 a month just from YouTube at home." "That's exactly what I did with Reddit stories. No face, no voice. Check the link below if you're curious." Her reputation in Newton had become rock solid. In the real estate game, Maggie Wilson was synonymous with high-value sales. Each property she handled fetched top dollar. As their light-hearted morning chatter continued, Maggie's smartphone buzzed. It was her mother, Eleanor. "Good morning, Maggie. How's prep for Emma's birthday coming along? I've ordered a special cake. It's shaped like the trophy she won at the state science fair last year." Maggie's face tightened a bit as she replied kindly, "Thanks, Mom, but I already placed an order with Jackson Patisserie." "Really? But what I ordered is one of a kind. A child like Emma deserves a unique cake. For Linda's son Thomas, an ordinary cake would do just fine." Eleanor's tone, sharp as ever, revealed her old habit from teaching, ranking her students now extended to her grandchildren. "Mom, please, no comparing Thomas and Emma," Maggie gently scolded. "By the way, is Linda coming to the party? I'm not sure. I called her yesterday, she said she was swamped with work. It's only a part-time job. If she put as much effort in as you do, she could easily land something better." Maggie sighed deeply. Her sister Linda had taken a different route, dropping out of college, marrying young, then separating a few years back, all while raising 13-year-old Thomas by herself and working as a clerk at a local supermarket. After ending the call, Maggie peered out the kitchen window. Linda's apartment was about a 30-minute drive away in a revitalized old factory district. Maggie had offered help many times, but Linda's pride always kept her from accepting any. Linda once insisted she'd rather take on another part-time gig than accept help from her own sister. "Mom, Angela's mom is here to pick me up," interrupted Emma, snapping Maggie back to the moment. Kissing her daughter goodbye, Maggie said, "Give it your all today. I can't wait to see you in the relay race." After Emma left, Maggie tried calling Linda again. On the third ring, her sister's tired voice answered, "Linda, are you really not coming to Emma's birthday?" "I'm sorry, Maggie. I couldn't change my shift." Linda's voice faded and Maggie picked up on the underlying message. At family events, while Eleanor praised Emma openly, she'd often throw jabs like, "You could work a little harder, Thomas." Linda's tone then turned firmer. "Yes, of course, I'll make something special." After hanging up, Maggie couldn't shake the bitterness in Linda's tone. They had been inseparable as kids. When did the gap widen between them? After their father passed, it was always Eleanor's favorite Maggie, while Linda was seen as the one needing more help. That old dynamic had simply carried on. Later that evening, when David returned home from his busy IT business, Maggie discussed the birthday party plans. "Aren't Linda and Thomas joining?" David asked with concern. "Emma's been eager to see Thomas, but Linda says she's working. Also, Thomas's grades haven't been too good lately. Maybe she's avoiding another lecture from Mom." David simply nodded, carefully choosing not to criticize Eleanor too harshly. That night, Maggie relaxed on the sofa, thumbing through an old photo album as she gazed at a picture of her and Linda laughing together. "What if Linda were in my shoes? What if her child was forever compared and left out?" she mused, feeling a pang of guilt for years of silent neglect over this family rift. Maggie's dining room now overflowed with cheerful balloons and a big "Happy Birthday, Emma" banner. As the catering crew set out the plates, Emma proudly displayed her new tennis racket to her friends. "Everyone, the cake's ready." Maggie signaled David to lower the music. Over 10 of Emma's classmates, along with several neighborhood families, had gathered. Eleanor, all dressed up, stood next to her granddaughter, boasting to every guest, My granddaughter won a gold medal at the district swim meet this year. The doorbell rang, and when Maggie answered, the delivery person handed over a package marked for Miss Wilson. As Maggie examined the box, she saw Linda's name on it. Maggie sighed softly. Although she expected Linda and Thomas to skip the party, a twinge of loneliness crept up. Back in the kitchen, Maggie opened the box to reveal a small basket of homemade cookies and a card that read, "Happy birthday. Eat as many as you like." In Linda's handwriting, Maggie picked up a cookie, ordinary chocolate chip cookies at first glance, but their strange color and uneven baking caught her eye. When she lifted it, a slight unwelcome odor mingled with a familiar scent of butter and sugar. Did Linda really make these? Eleanor's voice cut in from behind. Looking at the basket, she sniffed dismissively. Seems like she couldn't even send a store-bought cake. Homemade is cheaper after all. Maggie replied in a hushed tone. Linda's busy, but no matter how busy, she should show up for her niece's birthday. You're always here for Thomas's birthday, though. Repeating her hesitation as she re-examined the cookie, Maggie grew increasingly uneasy. Emma has a swim meet next week. It'd be awful if these made her sick. Instinctively, she tucked the basket away high on a shelf in the kitchen and returned to the party. In front of the cake, Emma beamed among her friends as flashes from cameras lit up the room. Suddenly, Eleanor stood up. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? I'd like to say a few words about my wonderful granddaughter. While Maggie fought the irritation simmering inside her, she kept smiling as Eleanor recounted Emma's recent grades and athletic feats. Her science fair win was only possible because of the way Maggie raises her child. My daughter is an amazing mom. Seems parenting is a gift. Who would've thought two sisters from the same household could turn out so differently? Maggie frowned at the subtle jab aimed at Linda. She quickly interjected. All right everyone, let's cut the cake. After the party wound down and the last guest had gone, Maggie sipped on a quiet glass of wine in the kitchen and dialed Linda. Thanks for the cookies, Linda. Emma had been overjoyed, though Maggie hadn't even mentioned them to her. Good, I'm glad, came Linda's flat reply. How was Mom? Maggie replied plainly, recounting Emma's grades and sports achievements. Linda remained silent for a while before Maggie tried to continue. So, how's Thomas? How's school? Well, you know, he failed another math test. He's trying, but... Linda's voice was weary. Maggie didn't know how to counter the injustice. Her daughter was always praised, while her nephew consistently got critiqued. If you need any help, I'm here, Linda snapped finally. I don't need your sympathy. After the call, Maggie stared at the untouched cookies on the shelf. She couldn't bring herself to toss them out, so she transferred them into a container and slipped it into the back of the refrigerator. The next day at her real estate office, while buried in paperwork, Maggie got a call from her mother. Maggie, did you hear? Linda's boy failed another math test. There was a note of satisfaction in Eleanor's tone that irked Maggie. Mom, please stop with these comments. I'm simply stating the facts. Unlike your constant praise for Emma, that boy is enough as it is. Maggie rarely raised her voice, but she pleaded. Stop comparing Thomas and Emma. They're just kids. Eleanor seemed taken aback. My, you're being so sensitive. I'm sorry, but I have a client meeting. Talk later. Maggie ended the call, slumping over her desk as memories flooded back to when Linda once proudly showed Mom a school drawing. Nice drawing, but Maggie's colors were much better. Or when Linda finished a piano recital. Apparently, Maggie's performance had been flawless while Linda's were riddled with mistakes. Maggie had even teased her sister back then. Don't be jealous of my daughter. The hurt in Linda's eyes that day still lingered in Maggie's mind. Now history was repeating itself with Emma and Thomas. One celebrated, one constantly falling short. Maggie felt compelled to finally face the distorted family dynamics she'd ignored for so long. On her drive home, Maggie stopped by the supermarket near Linda's apartment. Though it was during Linda's work hours, she wasn't there. Instead, Maggie spotted Thomas behind a register, bagging groceries. He must have been helping his mother after school. Maggie kept her distance so no one would notice her watching. Her nephew Thomas, tall and slight, looked far more mature than you'd expect for a child his age. His tired expression made Maggie's heart ache. 3 days later, Maggie was in her home office reviewing real estate contracts while autumn rain pattered quietly outside. From the living room, she could hear Emma practicing the piano. As she reached for her coffee, her smartphone rang. The caller ID showed Linda's name. Maggie frowned. Calls from her sister were unusual. She never dialed in without an important reason. Hello, Linda, Maggie answered. On the other end, Linda's voice sounded oddly upbeat. Maggie, I've got a question for you. Sure, what's up? Maggie replied. After a brief pause filled only by Linda's labored breathing, the question came. Did anyone eat the cookies? Maggie's eyes darted to the drawer where she had stashed a photo of Linda's cookies from the birthday party that morning. She remembered the oddly shaped and poorly colored cookies she had discreetly snapped a picture of, and then hidden at the back of the refrigerator. Oh, you mean your cookies? Linda asked in a seemingly casual tone. Yes. Did Emma enjoy them? Maggie replied. There was an unfamiliar tension in Linda's voice, and Maggie decided to change the tone. She rose from her chair and walked to the window before responding. Actually, your son stopped by after school and ate them all. On the other end of the line there was a long silence until Linda burst out. Thomas. When? What did he do? It was clear panic had struck her. Maggie maintained her calm as she looked out at the rain. He came by this afternoon after school. He said, Aunt, I'm hungry. And I told him I had cookies from Linda. Then I handed them over. The lie tumbled out easily, even though in truth, Thomas had never visited her house and no one had eaten the cookies. How many did he eat? Linda's voice trembled. All of them. He seemed to really enjoy them. Maggie added deliberately, including extra details. Is there something wrong? Do you have a problem? Linda's voice then betrayed a sound of something dropping. Her breathing became erratic, as if she was on the verge of a scream. Linda, are you okay? No. It's nothing, Linda managed, though her tone was agitated. I just need to talk to Thomas about going places without permission. Maggie fell silent. Linda's words confirmed her suspicions. Something must have been mixed into those cookies, something meant for Emma, yet somehow meant for Thomas too. After he finished eating, Thomas said, My stomach feels weird. Then Linda's scream-like voice came through once more. Oh my God, I'm coming over right now. The call abruptly ended. Maggie stared at her smartphone, frozen in disbelief, as the gravity of her deception began to sink in. She hurried to the living room where Emma was still at the piano, practicing Chopin's Nocturne. Emma, may I have a word? She asked. Emma paused and turned around. What's up, Mom? Aunt Linda is coming over. There's a problem with Thomas, Maggie said, watching the surprise flicker across her daughter's innocent face. Though Emma and Thomas rarely spoke, even at family gatherings, Maggie needed them to have some privacy. I need you to go upstairs and do your homework. Let us talk alone, she requested gently. Emma looked puzzled but nodded. Okay, but is Thomas okay? I don't know, that's why we need to talk, Maggie admitted, her voice heavy with uncertainty. After Emma headed upstairs, Maggie retrieved the container from the refrigerator. Inside were 6 untouched cookies. She set them on the dining table and waited while the rain grew heavier, its drumming on the windows echoing in her mind. As she sat there, memories of her sister flooded back, their childhood in the backyard, playing together, switching clothes to confuse their mother, and then the slow unraveling of their closeness as envy and pain crept in every time Maggie was praised. The doorbell rang, pulling Maggie back to the present. When she opened the door, Linda stood there soaking wet. Her face was pale and her eyes wide with fear. Thomas, where is he? Is he okay? Linda demanded. We need to get him to the hospital, Linda blurted. Calm down, Linda, Maggie said softly. Thomas isn't here. She paused, then added, No one came here and none of your cookies have been eaten. Linda's face twisted as she stared at Maggie, a mix of relief, anger and shame flashing across her features. Tears soon spilled down her cheeks. How could you? You came out here in the dining room. Maggie gently took Linda's arm and led her to the container on the table. Not a single cookie from your batch has been eaten. Linda sank into a chair, covering her face with trembling hands. After a long, heavy silence, the only sound being the persistent rain, Linda finally lifted her tear-stained face. With red, swollen eyes, she muttered, What did I put in these cookies? Maggie prodded softly. Tell me, Linda. After a pause laden with sorrow, Linda confessed in a shaky whisper. Laxatives. I mixed strong laxatives in there, but just a little, nothing life-threatening. I thought that if Emma got a little setback before her swimming competition, it might balance things out. Linda broke down in tears. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. What was I thinking? Maggie placed a gentle hand on her sister's trembling shoulder. Though she should have been furious, a deep sadness filled her instead. Remember when we were kids? Linda's eyes flickered with memories of a time when their mother always favored Emma and chastised Thomas. Every celebration, every success of Emma just emphasized Thomas's failures. Just once, I wanted her to experience a setback too. Linda choked. I wasn't in my right mind. Maggie was silent, absorbing the weight of Linda's confession. Deep down, she had never expected Linda's years of anger and suffering to lead to such drastic measures. Yet, In that moment, Maggie felt both sorrow and understanding. I share some responsibility, Maggie said quietly. I turned a blind eye for too many years. I thought Mom's ways were just the way things were, and even Thomas's treatment was normal. They sat in silence for a long moment, the untouched cookies a grim reminder of their family's broken dynamics. Finally, Linda looked up with tear-clouded eyes. I'm so sorry, Maggie. How do you forgive what I tried to do? Forgiveness may not come right away, Maggie admitted. But I can try to understand. Maybe it's time we finally address the sickness in our family. How do we do that? Linda asked in a voice laced with despair. First, I want to help Thomas more. I plan to spend time with him, help him explore his interests and talents, and encourage Emma to connect with him. Maggie's tone was measured. And we need to talk to Mom about the way she evaluates us. Her constant comparisons hurt both of us. Linda looked anxious. Do you think Mom will ever listen? I don't know, Maggie replied honestly. But change can only happen if we try. Their conversation was suddenly interrupted by the sound of footsteps coming down the stairs. Emma had returned. In that quiet, rain-soaked moment, the two sisters recognized that beneath their differences lay a shared, enduring pain. A legacy of their mother's distorted love. And though the road ahead seemed daunting, Maggie believed that by facing these deep-seated issues together, they might finally begin to heal. Emma appeared, looking a little awkward. Sorry, Mom, but I finished my homework, she said. She spotted Linda and managed a small smile. Hello, Aunt Linda, Emma greeted. Linda couldn't hide her agitation. Facing Emma was especially hard after confessing about the cookies. Hello, Emma. Happy birthday and sorry I'm late, Linda said, forcing a smile. Emma stepped closer. Thanks, Mom. You sent cookies too, right? Maggie mentioned them and Linda stumbled over her words. Maggie quickly jumped in. Yes, she did, but unfortunately they got broken during the trip. Emma looked a bit disappointed but soon brightened up. That's okay. How's Thomas? I haven't seen him around at school lately. Linda raised an eyebrow at her niece. Oh, you've been asking about Thomas? She replied. Yes, we sometimes bump into each other at the library. He really knows his history, Emma said matter-of-factly. Last week he even helped me with my report. Maggie and Linda exchanged surprised looks. There was clearly more happening between the cousins than they'd realized. Maggie spoke up as if struck by an idea. How about we invite Thomas for lunch this Saturday? Emma's face lit up. That'd be great. I want to show him my new game and hear more about the old coins he collects. Linda looked a bit confused. Emma, you know about Thomas's coin collection? Emma replied confidently. Of course. His collection is amazing. Especially that $1 Morgan. Linda agreed. Yes, that's the one. Maggie sensed a change in the air. The fact that Emma and Thomas had built their own bond was unexpected, yet it filled her with hope. We'll be expecting you on Saturday, Maggie told Linda gently. It's time we take a new step forward as a family. Linda's eyes glistened with tears, but now they were tears of a different sort, tears of reconciliation rather than regret. Later, the early summer sunlight bathed Maggie's backyard. Smoke curled upward from the barbecue grill as David and Thomas worked side by side, grilling meat on the deck. Emma was busy snapping photos of the blooming roses with her new camera. Here you go, Linda said, handing Maggie a glass of lemonade. The sisters sat together, admiring the garden scene. 6 months ago, I never imagined we'd come this far, Maggie said with a smile. I'm so glad Thomas's photo exhibition was a success. Linda nodded. Since he joined the photography club at school, he's really come alive. His teacher was amazed, she said. I had no idea he had such talent. Everyone needs to find their own path. Seems like Emma's taking an interest in his photography too, Maggie added. The changes that began with that Saturday lunch gradually rippled through the family. Maggie noticed Thomas's budding talent and even gave him his first digital camera. Emma learned fresh perspectives from him, and Thomas picked up some study tips from his cousin. Don't you think Mom has changed recently? Linda remarked softly. Yes, Maggie agreed. I was surprised to hear her attend Thomas's photo exhibition and speak such heartfelt words. It wasn't easy for Eleanor to change, but as Thomas's passion for photography blossomed, her attitude began to shift. We're finding our balance, aren't we? Maggie said. Linda squinted. Not perfect though, there's no such thing as perfect. Maggie laughed gently. Even my perfect family is just an illusion. Now once a month the sisters met for breakfast, just the two of them, to reminisce about childhood memories and share their current worries. Linda, once struggling financially, had found a new job in the administration office at a local art college, on my recommendation. Mom, look. Emma called as she approached, showing the screen of her camera. I took this photo using the composition Thomas taught me. Maggie admired the perfectly arranged photo of a blooming flower. That's wonderful, Emma. Thank you, Thomas. Emma's voice rang out cheerfully toward the garden where Thomas, who had been grilling, waved shyly. He now stood with a newfound confidence and smiled more often. Everyone, dinner is ready, David called, gathering the whole family around the table. Maggie soaked in the moment, imperfect, but a family that had faced the truth. The cookie incident had uncovered deep, hidden issues and given them the courage to address them. Maybe a real family isn't about competing for perfection, but about accepting each other's flaws and supporting one another, Maggie thought quietly. Linda rested her hand on Maggie's shoulder. The sisters exchanged a warm smile, not just as siblings or mothers, but as fellow human beings, ready to heal old wounds and embrace a brighter future.